Another crazy twist in the Karen Reed case. They tried to get another indictment, and we have a special panelist to help figure this out today.
It seems the Karen Reed case keeps getting crazier and crazier. I'm Lainey Law.
And I'm attorney Andrew Myers.
And today we have a special guest with us, another YouTuber, Alexasrewn. Alexa, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you guys?
We are doing awesome.
Good.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Alexasrewn, we will be sure to have links down in the description, as well as she follows the Karen Reed case and actually has a new video about it that you guys are going to have to be sure to check out.
So, Alexis, this case never seems to, just when we seem to think we're going to be able to put it away until the Supreme Judicial Court rules and until the new trial in January, this just, it never ceases to amaze us that there are new things happening in it all the time. I guess the more bizarre thing that's happening right now is that they tried to indict her right before the trial. The prosecutor failed to tie Karen Reed and Turtleboy together with witness intimidation conspiracy. What is that all about? What do you understand, Alexis?
So, I understand it, and thank you guys again for having me on. It's a pleasure to meet both of you and to collaborate on this. But yeah, from my understanding is there is a whole lot of drama beyond my even comprehension within the Turtleboy universe. So if you haven't checked that out, I definitely recommend diving into a lot of that involving ex-girlfriends, involving ex-employees, and of course the state police, who is trying to not only indict Karen Reed, but indict Turtleboy as well, too. And from my understanding, I don't know if you guys read the Mark Betterow letters as well, too, but that goes into more of the text messages and the alleged setup, and it feels to me almost kind of like entrapment in a way, to get him and get all these other now seemingly key players in this case, which have nothing to do with his ex-employee, his ex-girlfriend. And
that's crazy.
It really is, and I think it's just another way to shut up the press. They don't want people digging in and sticking their nose in where it doesn't belong.
And they also took two of Karen Reed's phones. It's just the extent to which they're trying to go to prosecute her. Let's take a look at this article that was in the Boston Herald. I know a lot of people prefer the Globe. That's fine. I read them all. As a former reporter. I try and read as much as I can. But this is the article that was in the Globe. That was in the Herald. Aiden Kearny on the left and Karen Reed as seen in a collage of two Herald staff photos, each of them in court. Article by Flint McGoglin. The cases of Karen Reed and pro-Reed blogger Aiden Kearny could have been more tied up together than they already are if a prosecutor had his way with a grand jury earlier this year. Special prosecutor Kenneth Mello, a Fall River-based attorney, brought in to handle multiple cases against Kearny, including felony witness intimidation charges relating to the Reed murder case, brought charges that Reed and Kearny had conspired to intimidate witnesses in her case to a Norfolk Superior Court grand jury. Alexis, you know what I noticed and thought was weird is that they had another special prosecutor. As you know, they brought in Hank Brennan, the guy that defended Whitey Bulger, to be the special prosecutor. Why are they, don't they have enough attorneys in the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office? Why are they bringing in all these special prosecutors?
You would think so, and that's a great point. And apparently, Ken Mello is getting paid a lot more than what Hank Brennan is going to get paid. So that's,
oh, wow.
Yeah, I was a little interested and curious to hear, and now Ken Mello is essentially taking the bench while this new guy, Robert Cosgrove, is taking lead on prosecuting Turtleboy's case. So it seems like their funds just seem to be endless, right? They have oodles of money to spend, of taxpayer money.
Yeah, our taxpayer money, exactly.
Yeah.
So The charges were not approved following the grand jury presentation. Jurors returned a no true bill on the matter, which means they did not find enough evidence to support the charges. A Norfolk Superior Court clerk confirmed to the Herald the case existed and that was the outcome, but said all of the materials involved in it are impounded and are not available for public view. Well, they've come out, as we know. Mello had dropped hints along the way that he was trying to indict the new charges. In January, a search warrant filed in Kearny's case was unsealed and revealed that Massachusetts State Police investigators had seized 2 iPhones from Reed. The warrant alleged that. Go ahead. What were we going to say?
I'd be curious too, because I know they haven't even returned back Turtleboy's devices yet. It's been something over 300 days. He still hasn't gotten his iPhones, his tablets, his laptops, etc., because they haven't done the phone extractions yet, even though they were very quick to do the phone extractions on Karen Reed's devices. So I'd also be curious. Yeah.
And with the equipment that the law enforcement has today, they can do that stuff fairly quickly. Lainey is our resident engineering expert, and isn't it true that if law enforcement, not you and me here, but if law enforcement has a phone, can't they do those extractions pretty quickly?
Yeah, I mean, from my understanding, it's pretty easy to clone a device once you have it in your possession. I mean, there's just with technology how it goes so right now. You can transfer so much data over. That's what I was kind of thinking when you said they haven't given them back their phone. It's just like my mind goes to it's just a way to bug them, to mess with them at that point if it's almost a year. I mean, obviously there's a lot of paperwork and whatever has to happen, but to take people's devices, that's such a personal part of you. It's like, imagine, we have everything on our phone. We have Apple Pay, we have, all our contacts and stuff like that. To not have that is strips a person of a lot of their stuff.
And they still have yet to explain the house long to die in cold Google search and how that got deleted.
Yeah.
So Kearny's attorney, Timothy Brandel, at the time told the Herald that this was an investigation without a crime. Sounds that way. His quote is that it appears to me that there is zero evidence that Karen Reed intended or had anything to do with any witness intimidation or interference, and rather is a woman fighting for her life as a target of a murder charge, he said at the time. And I remember just before the trial, we were doing an episode and people down in the comments were saying, oh, Karen Reed is feeding information to Turtleboy. And I'm saying to myself, doesn't she have enough to do? I mean, she's got these 2 attorneys and she's got to get ready for trial. Getting ready for trial is a stressful thing. And how would she even have time? How would she even have time to, be feeding stuff to Turtleboy? And anyhow, as you know, he's been a reporter in Massachusetts for years and years and years. He's unveiled all kinds of police corruption over the years. Yeah. So I think he has his own sources. He didn't really need Karen Reed, but I guess the prosecution was really, maybe they were the ones that put the comments down in our section below saying, they're tied together. They're working together. They're in some room wearing shades, exchanging information. But
yeah, they like to make it seem like this. It's like some kind of movie, and this all really has become one big giant movie. But it's so funny because they like to diminish Turtleboy as a journalist and call him constantly, he's just a blogger, he's just a blogger. Well, if he was just a blogger, then you wouldn't feel that threatened by the information in the articles that he's publishing. So it's kind of funny.
I think one of the problems is, and I'm a student of the media. Before I was an attorney, I was a reporter for 10 years. I went to Emerson and I got a degree in mass communications. Oh, wow. So I think that the thing that the big old, media people can't deal with is more and more people aren't paying attention to the big stations and the broadsheets and the other newspapers. And I'm sure you've read the same things that we've read. In 20 years, nobody is going to be even watching or reading any of that. And people are getting 99% of all of their information online from bloggers, from YouTube, from TikTok, from all those different sources. Yeah, I don't think they can deal with that.
No, I don't think they can, because the barrier to entry is much lower than it used to be. I mean, you don't need essentially a degree to become a reporter. You don't need to do this or that or have these credentials. You could just be somebody like me who has a laptop and a webcam and says, hey, I have an opinion and I want to voice that opinion and start a discussion. And I think that's really, it goes into that conversation of our First Amendment rights and the power of free speech. And I think this is a really great time in the world, really, where anybody can be anything and share an opinion and become a reporter or take an alternative career path.
Yeah, but you have a lot of talent. Don't minimize yourself by saying, "Well, all I have is a laptop and a whatever," because you have a lot of talent, and we're all kind of moderated by the powers that be, whether it's YouTube or TikTok or whatever. Because if you get 0 views, it's not even worth doing it. So you have to have talent, which you do. You've got to have the ability to put something together that's logical and rational. Because if you don't, people aren't going to read it. But now, having disparaged the media, let me finish this article. While defense attorney David Yannetti said he couldn't comment on the failed indictment, her attorney, I should say Turtleboy's attorney, did give the Herald a short comment regarding how Mello hinted at the alleged conspiracy between Reed and Kearny. The timing of the release of the information that there was an attempt to indict Mr. Kearny and Ms. Reed is extremely troubling, and I would agree.
Yeah.
This paragraph is just stuff that we all know, just the background. The trial ended with a hung jury. New trial scheduled for January 27th. This is just background. I'm sure that both of our viewers know. The O'Keefe family filed a civil lawsuit against her, and she has requested that be stayed until the end of her criminal proceedings. Her case has become a lightning rod for true crime junkies. I would rewrite that. It says in the greater Boston region. I would say everywhere.
The world. Yeah. I mean, this has been hitting even countries like Australia.
We have comments that say the same thing.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, one of our panelists, attorney Yoli, I don't know if you've met Yoli yet, but Yoli Medina is an attorney out in Southern California. She's been following it, and now she's branched off and done her own channel, and she covers this. And, so yes, it's worldwide, really. I mean, they'd like to think that they can, restrain this inside of Route 128 or 495. No, the word is out that Massachusetts has got some problems.
Yeah, and they still have that billboard, right, of Free Karen Reed by Gillette Stadium, I think.
Yeah.
I think they still have that posted up there, too. And I know people are saying, oh, they should change the venue, but there's no way you can change the venue for the retrial. I mean, that's just essentially saying, this is completely bogus and we should just be dropping it all.
I had thought about that. I actually lived out in Springfield for a year, of one of the longest years of my life, but they read all the Boston media. Now, they do there's a lot of Yankees fans out in Springfield. So Western Massachusetts does tend to follow New York a little bit more than we do in the East inside Route 495. But still, the publicity is pervasive. I doubt if you could walk down the streets of Springfield or Greenfield or Amherst and find people that have not heard about the case. Because unlike Idaho is a huge state. It stretches from the Canadian border all the way down to Nevada. Massachusetts is a tiny little state. So
it is.
Change of venue really wouldn't work. Actually, I don't think anybody's even suggested it outside of the tubosphere. Do you think?
I don't think anybody seriously is considering that. I mean, that's just career suicide. I would, for Morrissey, in my opinion, that's essentially you admitting that you don't have a viable case to try her again. But
I have a crazy.
Go ahead.
I have a crazy question for you. And why is it? Why I have a tendency to ask these multi-pronged questions, and I probably should stop it. Why is it that we're just hearing about this unsuccessful quest for a indictment now? Why did they do it right before the trial? And do you think there's other stuff going on that we don't know about? Because grand jury proceedings are supposed to be secret. So do you think there's other stuff that they're doing now that we don't know about that could blow our minds if we knew?
I think it's them attempting to do some kind of damage control. I mean, I know for the DA's office, they're in a PR crisis from the DA's office all the way, even in Maura Healey's speech the other day at the MSP Recruit Academy graduation, she ceased to mention her buddy Morrissey in her speech, and she was shouting out every other DA's office for the most part, not everybody, but a lot of them. So I thought that was interesting, but I think they're on high alert, and I think now that people are starting to dig in, and Mark Betterow is a pretty big New York attorney as well. He kind of brings some of that clout that Alan Jackson also brought to Karen Reed's team. So now he's bringing a little bit of that, I guess, more publicity from that angle. So people are a little bit more curious and interested and paying attention to these connections between the Turtleboy alleged conspiracy with Karen Reed. So I think this is, now people are starting to really tune in and pay attention.
Yeah, it seemed like for months and months and months, you really didn't hear much about the Karen Reed case. And now all of a sudden, like I was listening to WBZ on the radio on the way in this morning, and they had a headline about the Sandra Birchmore case, and that DNA is now being used. William Farwell's DNA is, and you never heard about Sandra Birchmore. The media and the state wanted us to forget all about her. So because of that, the publicity worldwide that you said, I think it's more nationwide, but you're probably right, worldwide. More and more focus has come to not only Karen Reed, but the Farwell indictment, what happened to Sandra Birchmore, and what about the other officers that were in Stoughton at the time that she was in the Explorers program. So, you're right. And that's why I'm wondering if there's other stuff that's going on behind our backs that we don't know, because the federal indictment of Matthew Farwell just really, it blew all of our minds. It came out of nowhere, it seems to me.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And I was just going to say, I feel like this whole thing has come out of nowhere. It's just like, as soon as it's an issue with like the cops, all of a sudden, all this, it's like, meanwhile, it's just like you are walking down the street. It's like there's people speeding. The cops just like sitting there on their phone texting. It's just like the whole for example, I've mentioned the story before. My apartment got broken into, and then the cops came, couldn't find any forced entry, left. Okay. Wow. Next time they broke into my apartment, we called the cops. What do you want us to do? I don't know, cop stuff. Like, you're not supposed to come over. You want us to come over? Like, I don't know. Yes. There's nothing you're going to do about this. Yeah. And then the third time we called them, there was a crowbar outside my window and women's underwear, not my underwear, in the bush next to my window. So I call the cops. They come over. Crowbar's too rusty to get fingerprints. They pick up the crowbar. They walk away, and there's still underwear in the tree after they leave. So it's just like, that's my experience. And granted, they're two different states, New Hampshire and Massachusetts. But I'm like, where was all this effort on the police side to do any justice when it involved actual crimes?
Yeah. Well, at least in Massachusetts, they're too busy investigating rubber ducks.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
So what's new with the rubber duck case? We did a previous episode. I know you've done some episodes digging into it. 36-page police report. We went through some of it on a previous episode. I know you did, but how is it that the Canton Police Department has enough time to do a 36-page police report when they pretty much walked away from the Sandra Birchmore case? I mean, what struck you the most about the fact that there was a 36-page indictment and now there are charges pending in court against at least two people? What was your take on that?
I mean, as ridiculous as it is, this is Canton, right? It's normal. This is normal townie cop behavior. I mean, it doesn't surprise me if you tune in to any of the Canton Select Board meetings that are streamed. I think they're bi-weekly. Now they've moved the in-person meetings to online over Zoom because they don't want to come face-to-face with their community. The Canton Police Audit Committee. So it's one big joke, and a lot of the people who are current Canton residents have repeatedly expressed the fact that everybody's laughing. Everybody's not only watching Canton, but they're laughing at us, and we don't want to be the laughing stock of the country. So, I mean, I see this kind of as normal townie cop behavior. I mean, if you look at even with I call him Sergeant Bukwacki,
Yeah,
Sergeant Buchanan.
Yuri Buchanan. Yeah.
Yeah, Buchanan. Chris Albert texted him, like they're buddies, like they go back for years and years and years. Hey, can you?
Oh, there's no conflict of interest there. Come on now.
Yeah, it's not like I'm a witness in the Karen Reed case or my brother who was literally the homeowner of 34 Fairview, but hey, like, or my son, or it's just. It's a joke. And I think one of the places that one of the rubber ducks was found was in Kerry Roberts' like in-laws or something, a restaurant that they owned. Kerry Roberts, who is also a witness in the case.
Right.
And
Right.
I think the in-law was also the realtor for Brian Albert when Brian Albert was selling his home. So it's one of those cases where if you just look at mainstream media, kind of going back to that point, and you
Right.
just look at what they present to you, it seems like, wow, this is, just crazy conspiracy theorists, trying to make something happen. But if you actually read the court documents, you read the police reports, you dive in, you read the local news, you will start to piece together that this isn't as crazy of a conspiracy as everybody else wants to make it out to be. I mean,
Well, I think the conspiracy is what's really going on in the background. I mean, going back to what I said before about the grand jury indictment,
Yep.
the failure to get a grand jury indictment back in March, that would have, I hate the word bombshell, but that would have been a bombshell, just a month before the Karen Reed jury selection started on April 15th. So don't tell me about conspiracies when law enforcement doesn't investigate an M, but they do investigate the little rubber duckies that are left on a bench outside of a pizza joint in Canton. So if there's a conspiracy, I think the conspiracy is in the offices of the LE that just what would possess them? What would possess them to start investigating rubber duckies that are left around town? They go into the guy's garage. They go through his trash. They track him on those license plate readers. I mean, what would possess them to go to that extent? I mean, isn't Canton kind of like the rest of the world that has, horrible problems, drug problems, S problems, all kinds of other things? Why aren't they doing what they can about, horrible driving? There was a horrible accident in Canton on Route 495 or one of the other interstates. I forget which one, right outside. Why aren't they doing something about all those things? Why? What would possess them and to get your friend Yuri Buchanan in on the investigation into the rubber ducks? It makes no sense. And then one of the charges was witness intimidation, but one of the charges was littering. Really?
No.
When have you in your life ever heard of anybody being charged with littering?
For real.
Never.
For the people that have all the trash on the side of the highway.
I mean, honestly, I grew up on Long Island in New York, and I can't tell you the amount of litter and trash and garbage. You think anybody's doing anything about that? No, of course not. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. They even went so far as to clip, I think, a live stream of Mike Crawford from the Young Jerks as well, and added that to the police report as well.
Oh my God.
And I'm like,
Yes.
really? It's just
Yes, I saw that. Yeah.
I just feel like if any intimidation is happening, it's the intimidation of the police officers going into poor women's homes and interrogating them about the ducks. It's like
Yes, these poor women who don't even live in Canton. I'm like, you had to drive, an hour out of your way? And meanwhile, this was all going on while Yuri Buchanan was still technically under the internal affairs investigation. That was before they even decided, hey, you're going to get the little 5 unpaid
5 days. Yeah.
no.
Bad boy.
Yeah.
Don't do it again.
Yeah, poor Yuri. I mean, it's
Now I
it's
only have
a
15
joke.
days of vacation left.
Yeah, I mean, or
Well,
quack.
they can't kick him too hard because they need him for the Karen Reed trial 2.0.
Yeah.
How can they put Proctor on the stand? I mean, if they don't, the defense will put him on the stand. But I mean, I don't know if you noticed in the Karen Reed trial, they were trying to get as much evidence in as they could under Buchanan, so they wouldn't have to put Proctor on the stand. But in the end, they failed, and they can't kick him too hard, can they? I mean, they need him.
Yeah. No, that's a great point too. But the interesting thing is that I believe Turtleboy's trial which is going to involve a lot of the same cast of characters being called as witnesses, is a month before Karen Reed is set to go to trial again. So I don't know how they even retry her at this point, especially with all that's coming out with the Turtleboy stuff. So I don't know how they call Proctor again. He's not even getting called in the Brian Walsh case. How did they call Tully again? He's still under internal affairs investigation. I mean, it's a big joke.
Well, there's rumors that I totally don't agree with. There are rumors that Hank Brennan will take a look at the evidence and say, nah, I don't think that's going to happen. I really don't think that's going to happen. There's other rumors. I'm sure you've heard them that Hank Brennan will say, okay, let's work out a deal with Karen. Well, Karen's not going to take a deal. So I don't see, I agree with you. You said you don't see how they can try her case a second time. I don't see how they can't try her case a second time. So it's going to be a real, show because of, I mean, in trial one, it seemed like there were 74 witnesses, and the state brought witnesses in that the defense, 99% of them, turned around and they blew up in their face. Well, if you're Hank Brennan, what do? Do you bring those same witnesses back in again and let the defense turn them around, or do you pare down the witness list from 74 to, I mean, what do you do? I mean, I'm glad I'm not in his shoes. I've met him. I've met Hank. He's a decent guy. He has a very good reputation in the bar. He started out as an Essex County prosecutor, and then he went out on his own as a defense attorney. But I just thought it was a real mismatch that they put him in. And I agree with you. I don't see how they can try it, but I don't see how they can't try it. Now, let me ask you a question and put you on the spot. You're a newer YouTuber. And your thing is, and I'm going to read directly from your, and I like this. I am not a legal expert. I am not a medical professional. I don't have a police background. I don't have a college degree. I am, however, someone who is deeply fascinated with how the law works. I like that because, people that are in various professions, whether they're law enforcement or attorneys or medical, we all have our own little way of thinking. We're very narrow, but someone like you is a potential juror. You're potentially the kind of a person that's actually going to be sitting there and making those of us who think very narrowly, think about how to really present this stuff. So what made you want to get into doing a great YouTube channel?
I mean, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. I mean, I've always been really invested in just criminal law cases throughout pretty much my whole life. I mean, even dating back to, I remember watching like E! Hollywood with the Mary Kay Letourneau stuff. And that just absolutely blew my mind. But I think for me, I just really wanted a space to have conversations that were intelligent. My partner, not the biggest into the news or anything going on in the criminal true crime world. So I really wanted selfishly a place to have those conversations with other people, like you said, who could become potential jurors, because I've never been a juror, but I'm sure at one point or another I'm going to get called. And I think this has been a consistent problem, especially over the last several cases that I've covered. I mean, the Karen Reed case, but also, too, with the Ashley Benefield case. I don't know if you guys covered that at all.
Oh, yeah.
There was a lot of potential juror misconduct, jurors not understanding really what reasonable doubt means. And I think that's something that, and even a lot of jargon that lawyers tend to use. And I think this is kind of just my attempt of how can I understand the law better so that I can protect myself, my rights, the people I care about and love, and share what I'm learning with everybody else.
I used to try a lot of cases, not so much anymore, but one thing that really struck me is that, these jury instructions go on and on and on, and that was one of the issues in the Karen Reed case, especially on count 2, that it didn't make any sense. And Alan Jackson tried to point that out to Judge Cannoni, and she said, that's not how we do it in Massachusetts. Well, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
So do you think I know the answer to this question, so I shouldn't even answer it, but don't you think jury instructions are way too complicated? I mean, a committee of attorneys got together somewhere at some CLE conference, and, this attorney said, well, put this in, and then the next attorney said, put that in. Well, by the time 25 different attorneys said, put that in, jury instructions go on forever. Don't you think they're way too complicated?
Yeah, I think a lot of times, I mean, if you even just look at some of the latest court TV streams of cases and trials, right, where it's an hour, there's like essentially an hour allotted just for jury instructions. And I think where it becomes even more of a problem is in a lot of states there aren't readbacks, or the jurors aren't able to take notes while they're consuming all this information as well too, and that can be really difficult. I mean, especially nowadays where our attention spans are incredibly low, right? So it's hard to stay focused. Also, not to mention the courtroom that they were in for the Karen Reed trial was hot. I mean, Bev was always constantly complaining about the air conditioning and yelling at everybody to speak up.
If you don't speak up, I'll turn the air conditioning off.
Exactly. Like an angry mom. I was like, oh my gosh. But I agree. I definitely think that there needs to be a way where not only just what's said in a courtroom, but there needs to be a way for just the law in general be a little bit easier for people to understand. And I think that even dates further back to our education system, which is a whole other conversation.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. When I went to law school, even many eons ago, I hate to admit how many eons ago it was, we had to read a book called Plain English for Lawyers. Well, it was only this big, and then the rest of the books we read were that big. But back then, they were trying to tell lawyers to be more brief and more concise. But these jury instructions, I'll be really honest with you. Sometimes I read jury instructions and I don't understand them. And I'd like to consider myself a reasonably intelligent person. I went to law school, graduated towards the top of my class, and I read some of these jury instructions and I don't understand them. So I think something needs to be done to make them a little bit more simple. Another question I have for you, and that is, you just mentioned the Ashley Benefield case, which I don't want to talk about because that was one of the lowest rated episodes we ever did. I don't talk
about it.
Mine too. Don't
My
worry.
question for you, though, most of the stuff you do is Massachusetts. We've been talking about Turtleboy, Karen Reed. You did an episode on the Massachusetts State Police Academy, trainee Enrique Delgado-Garcia. And I thought most of what you did is Massachusetts. Is that your focus, Massachusetts, or not?
It's really not. It's just been kind of what's pulling me in. And also, too, when I started my channel, I was mainly focused on the Karen Reed trial, right? I kind of jump-started in the middle of the trial. Yeah. So I was kind of finding my feet, and a lot of the community I've brought in is really invested in the Karen Reed case and all of the stuff surrounding it. So I've kind of focused a little bit on that, but I'm also starting to kind of pivot into other stuff as well. I want to do kind of like a deep dive rewind into older cases as well that aren't considered open and shut, right? There's been a conviction or they're cold cases. So I am going to be mixing in more stuff like that as well. I've been looking into the Melanie McGuire case, which is really fascinating as well too. That was a New Jersey case. So, but yeah, the stuff that's going on in Massachusetts, though, it's hard not to talk about. There's something.
Massachusetts is just a magnet.
Massachusetts is just so corrupt. Here's how old I am. When I first moved to Massachusetts and started following stuff in Massachusetts, 2 state senators were doing jail time: DiCarlo and McKenzie. DiCarlo from Revere and McKenzie from Burlington. They were taking kickbacks on the construction of the UMass campus in Dorchester.
Yes,
and
I did hear about that. Yeah.
The 2 of them were doing jail time, and there was a 3rd senator who was being prosecuted. I think he pled his way out of it. But I mean, so that was my introduction to Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And it's gotten worse. It's gotten deeper and deeper and deeper. And I always wondered why people think Chicago is corrupt. No. Boston.
No. Yeah.
Chicago doesn't hold a wind to Boston. It really just doesn't. But we're interested in branching out too.
Right.
So
no, that's great.
Yeah, we're interested in I've actually started a couple of episode research and outlines, and we've just never done them because sometimes there's just no interest in it. And you're right, Massachusetts is a magnet for just craziness.
Yeah, and then we have this stuff in New York too. I mean, I'm a former New Yorker, as I mentioned earlier, and Eric Adams got indicted. I mean, recently,
just the other day,
yeah. But he has the same lawyer as Baldwin.
Oh, really?
Alex Spiro. Yeah,
Interesting.
That I did not know.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And then there's P. Diddy. We've just started getting into the P. Diddy thing, reading the indictment. So yeah, I'm from Pennsylvania, by the way. I'm from southeastern Pennsylvania, but I've been up here in New England forever and ever and ever.
Right.
But there's just so much everywhere. I think probably the next really big thing will be just following Koberger, just following the Koberger thing. Just, it's got a new judge, it's got a new court, and the judge seems to want to rein the parties in a little bit. So I think that'll be interesting to see if they start releasing details, because we really know nothing. We know nothing about that case.
Yeah, and that's kind of where my position is too. I mean, I was following that when the investigation first started to unravel, and just an awful and incredibly sad case. And now I heard that they set a trial date as well too for Koberger, right? It's in
August 11th.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just did an episode on that.
Yeah,
August. We just went through the whole new track. It's not a tracking order. It just reveals the dates. They don't call it a tracking order, but all the old dates from Moscow were taken off the books, and they've reframed the whole thing. So, So it's really nice to talk to you. I've watched your episodes. It's really nice to electronically meet you finally. So we'll put a link down in the description section for people to go to your channel if they haven't noticed it yet. But Alexis, do you have any closing thoughts for us? I always put people on the spot and say, do you have any closing thoughts for us?
Well, I mean, I just hope that the people who should be held accountable do the right thing. The DA's office does the right thing. They take the time to really listen to their community, all the community leaders, the Canton Select Board, the Canton Police Audit Committee. Listen to your people, take what they're saying seriously, because at the end of the day, they're the ones who are responsible for not only funding, I always say this, funding your lifestyle, right? They're the ones paying your paycheck, and also electing you as well, too. So that would be my big closing message.
Yeah, those are interesting meetings. We haven't done any episodes on them, but I watched them. At home on YouTube, the local meetings in Canton and the audit committee and the selectmen. Fascinating. Okay, Lainey, your turn for closing thoughts. Then we're going to go to the grocery store.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Alexa, so much for joining us. I really do appreciate what you're doing with your channel, and you make a good point when you were talking about the jury instructions needing to be more simple, and that law needs to be more simple overall. I think that it's really helpful for people in general to be able to go onto YouTube and see someone who is going to be similar minded to them, where me and you are laymen, where we just try to give our interpretations of it, because I think a lot of people do think that you have to be like an attorney to dissect these things, or that this language is too grandiose. And I think that it helps a lot of people to be able to step back and realize, this is something that we can interpret. This is something that isn't so big and scary. And it's just really awesome to see. But we appreciate you being on here so very much today.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Good to see you. Be well. Whether you're in the grocery store, the gas station, or anywhere else, please remember to be kind to people. You don't know what they're going through. And the same goes for our comments section. We want you to comment, but be nice, be kind, be positive if you can. And thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Have a good one.